Hey, 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 what's up, guys? How you doing tonight? Come on in, come on in. You second, guys, get the notice. Guys, will pop right on in. Today is Wednesday, the 8th of 2024. Tonight is the midweek conspiracy theory, midweek conspiracy talk, right? So I've been talking about, propaganda, social engineering, the mainstream. Been touching on all that the last couple shows, right? Get on in here. I see you guys coming. I touched on the whole social engineering, the PSYOP, the institutes at play, even share some graphics. I got some more graphics for you tonight. Got another diagram. All right. So it only makes sense to basically, since we touched on how DARPA's handling all the social engineering, tonight I want to kind of look at who the secret societies actually are, who they are, what groups. Maybe you've heard of some of these groups, maybe you haven't. But tonight we're going to talk about them, just a few of them. Can't get into all of them. It's a lot of groups, but we're going to touch on some ones that we already knew about. Okay. All right. So got another graphic for you. Here you go. Feast your eyes, of course. DeepStateMappingProject.com. Big shout out. This is the Octagon Group. So this is basically set up all the sources of power and all the groups that are under the octagon and the groups that are basically above the octagon. But this diagram is very fluid. All right. So if you look in the middle, all right, you see the octagon group. But if you look to the sides of it, you'll see different countries. You'll see Rome, Jerusalem, DC, Munich, London, Zurich, Geneva, and I can't see that little word. It's a little fuzzy on my screen. Hold on. Bern. Sorry. Right. So these are where all your power is centralized, essentially, and it's making up most of Europe, of course, with the District of Columbia. So this is another hierarchical system of how this is set up. Now, if you look at the top, this is where we get into our real deep theology. This is where we get into the mothers of darkness. We get into the pharaohs of Egypt, the cults, Lilith, Baphomet. We get into a little bit of everything up there. This is where essentially these stories are coming from, right? When we talk about like the Fallen and Moloch and Baal worship, we discuss stuff like that. That's at the top of basically the diagram, right? So this is just the diagram. It's not saying it's true, but these guys, like I say, do a lot of time. They take their time to kind of line this up and use history to show how they all run into each other. All right, now tonight we're gonna keep it simple. We're not gonna go too far into all these groups, but just a little background. You got the Khazarian Mafia, one of my favorites. I'm not gonna lie, that's top five for me. You see the Freemasonry symbol in the middle. You see the Nazis on the right of it. All right, and the Zionists in the middle because they play both sides. Now, there's something to this middle, right? Now, look at everything in the middle of the diagram. All right, you see Geneva and Washington, D.C., basically in the middle of it all. They're the ones basically delegating. Now, Freemasonry goes into both sides. The Zionists go into both sides. The NWO, the Templar, and all that. The Order of Crow. So there's a reason these main centered groups are in the middle because they neither lean left or right. It just matters who's pushing what agenda that day for them. It can be left and it can be right. Their money has major reach, and it's not like they can't get what they want. We know this, we see it. It's basically happening to us. It's happening to us when we say red versus blue, Republican versus Democrat. You're playing the same thing. There's something in the middle of them that's guiding them. Now you can see Mossad on the left under the Khazarian Mafia with media, world, and of course the World Health Organization, Order of Malta, the Knights Templar, Switzerland, the papal bloodlines, the Vatican, the black nobility. Got a couple videos on the black nobility. We're going to discuss them too, because, you know, most people don't want to say anything about them. And then on the right, you have the Nazis, you have the CIA, all your Fed boys, CERN, the Jesuits, the 13 families, you know, the families we hear about, like the Orsinis and the Medicis. Of course, the Rockefellers are in there, Rothschilds, I think Bundy also. So, very detailed diagram tonight. Now, secret societies aren't new, they're just more spoken of now with everything going on right now. Since America's inception, secret societies have been basically American culture, from Freemasonry to the Skull and Bones, Order of the Phoenix. There's a couple groups that have been here for some time now. I have literature, just different books, different readings. They kind of touch on Albert Pike, Mazzini, Freemasonry. Got some stuff on the Khazarians, little bit of everything. And I got the banking cabal, like history of central banking and human enslavement. We'll get to the correct title. I'll show you when we get it on the screen. But tonight, we're really going to kind of dig in and see how this is really moving around. Now, going back to the diagram, if you look to the right, under the what is that? CERN and the Alphabet Boys, you'll see the World Economic Forum. You'll see NATO, you'll see the UN, see the OSS. These are your hubs of control and influence, all right? While all of them have some right and some kind of task in this whole diagram of crazy, everyone plays their role. So what I find very curious is that the CIA is higher than the World Economic Forum, which would make complete sense because Central Intelligence are basically plugging into everything. So if that's the case, then you would assume that most of your what's the word I'm looking for? Most of your delegation is coming from these organizations. All right. So KJ says the Council on Foreign Relations. Yeah, that's another group. Like it's like little tiny proxy groups all over. So it makes it harder for us to pinpoint who we're dealing with. Thousands of years ago, when they were running around doing the same exact thing, it was easier, I suppose, to spot them because it was always one group and you probably would catch their bad habits. But with so much misinformation, media, propaganda, and so many groups not being seen, it makes it harder for us to kind of understand why everyone's against our own government right now. Why everyone says the deep state, the deep state. This is how QAnon came into existence. This is how most of your conspiracies from 9/11 to Kennedy to everything we're talking about, this is how all this has showed up. So when we discuss secret societies, we have to understand that it's not just one, but a very intricate web of groups that all work together, pulling strings on both sides, right? No, it sounds crazy. In a perfect world, this wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't. But that's not the world we live in, right? The world we live in is slightly dark, kind of smells, and you know, it's very stressful. When I say stressful, I mean we're all sitting on the edge of our seats hoping worst case scenario isn't coming, right? So my guy KJ saying, hey, we're battling a 6,000-year-old death cult. Listen, at one point, I did not know this. All right. I didn't know any of this. Like, I knew that there was something going on if you just watch, like, how politics operated and how certain schools and certain neighborhoods were better. If you really just paid attention, you could see the surface level of the politics and the deceit. But when we talk about how detailed this really is, we're talking possibly a group who's been around, like KJ said, for the latter part of 6,000 years. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm talking hella head start. Now, the only thing about this group for the last 6,000 years is that you win some, you lose some, but you live to fight another day. They lose, and then they live to fight another day. And maybe 6,000 years later, here we are, 2024, possibly on the cusp of the season finale. Possibly. Season finale is coming November 5th. And whoever wins that, if we get out of that season, next season 2025 is going to be insane. Like we thought 2024 was hectic. I tell you now. I tell you now 2025 is going to be one for the books. Okay? So what we're talking about right now is a a compound of groups and organizations and families that have been around since the existence of man, if you want to believe that. And they've literally been ripping the fabric of the universe and human existence apart since the day they stepped foot on this plane. Why are they this way? There is a couple of explanations. Some of them have to do with Cain and being Canaanites. Some of them have to do with Baal worship and Moloch. Some of them have to do with the fight with the Israelites, and some of it has something to do with 1776, Adam Weishaupt, and the Illuminati. If you speed it up to 2024, it seems like the whole entire entertainment industry is being ran by some quote unquote hidden hand that in all the videos you see nothing but symbolism. Like you watch the Jay-Z videos, you see the symbolism, the eye, come on. It's not just photo ops. It's not possible to just be photo ops. All right. Even little Michael Jackson back in the day covered his eye. So if he was doing it back then, and if you go back to all these other like artists and you listen to like the stories, you can always hear who's in charge. And we like to call those people Zionists. All right. Now, Zionists are on here in the middle because they play both sides. They kind of rock with everybody. Um, it's not like they're just against certain people. They pretty much work with anyone carrying their message. And that's pretty much anyone on this diagram who's willing to carry the message can be a part of the team, along with doing some strange, eerie rituals and some sick stuff, right? Now, at the top, you see the cult and the Aton, they break up at the bottom. You get the synagogue of Satan and you get the cult of Baal, all right? Both centered over the top of Geneva. Essentially, this is where it's coming out of, right? Because this is where Satan's throne lies, is in Geneva. This whole secret society thing is really detailed. Keep up with me. It goes a little bit of everywhere, okay? All right. All right. So I got some stuff. I got some content. We're going to start with a little bit of hierarchy conversation. Now, before we go, always remember that DARPA is a part of this, and I got both diagrams tonight. I got all my diagrams. If I have to pull in the cult of Baal and all this stuff too, I will. So just let me know what you want to see. If you lose somewhere, we can bring out the full hierarchy system. All right. Now, again, I got them up here because this octagon chart that I showed you first is basically page 1. Page 2 would be DARPA. This would be their one part of their centralized control. All right. This would be just pure technology defense. You still see the occultism and the Masons. You see all of that. Nothing really changes. It just now the web looks different. Okay. Web broke up in a little bit different ways, and now everyone's kind of handling their business all over now, right? Good. All right. Now, got an audio clip for you. Let me find it.
The American dream is actually an American nightmare. I'm going to make this go everything. I'm going to go over down here. Tier 1. This is the bronze section, the general population. This is the ignorant mass people who live out their lives in a totally unaware, dreamlike state. They are enhanced by psychoactive medications and medium, also highly developed electromagnetic frequency-based behavioral medication technologies, which is 5G. Okay, so down here we have all of us, the 9-to-5 slave workers. We are the sheep. This is considered the matrix. This is considered everyday life. You have your CPUs, which are your computer generated players, and then you have your actual antagonist, which are the actual chosen ones who are chosen to be woke in society. Stay tuned to my profile. Follow along for more.
All right, all right. Thank you for being patient and enjoying that. Now listen to what he said, right? It's a system, it's a hierarchical system created. Everything we see is for a reason. It's not by accident, it's not a coincidence, it's all by design. When I say design, it is constructed like no other. I'm talking pitfalls, hoops, pits of alligators and lions, stuff everywhere, right? This system was created to basically enslave us, use us as basic like spiritual battery packs. All right, no, this sounds crazy. Hear me out. Hear me out. The ideal for these people at the top of that chart is that they're siphoning our spiritual energy. These are why the secret societies operate the way they do with the rituals. All right. This is why you hear about things like Bohemian Grove, and you hear about things like the Bilderberg Club and the Trilateral Commission and chart, chart, the WHO and the NWO and the Order of Malta, the Chaos Agents, right? We are just a small faction at the bottom. And when you say you hear of the CPU or the NPC, the non-player character, those are the people who are just going to buy or what you would call quote unquote sheeple, right? The sheeple that we're talking about are apparently NPCs, but there's something to the Matrix and NPCs that in the video game, in the construct of the video game, it doesn't happen. But in real life, let's say the NPCs are the regular people, right, in this whole secret society game. Let's say that they can be woken up and given spirit or some type of fire within their soul. But it takes a unified group to get the message out. We have to vibrate and operate on a certain frequency for everyone to kind of boom, wake up. This is why you hear about the age of enlightenment. We're going to get into a lot of different stuff. Just bear with me. I know it sounds like I'm jumping around. I promise I'm not. If you know, you know, right? KJ, you're ahead of me right now. I got you. I got you. Trust me. I got you. You're ahead of me. So when we talk about what we're dealing with, all these groups are still doing some type of ritual, right? Whether it be perpetrated or whether it's done in the dark, you know what I'm saying, with their own little groups, right? Now, this would make sense for the conversation with the QAnons that there's certain dates, there's certain times, there's certain this and that. I've always said that that's social engineering at best. Believe it if you want, believe it if you don't, but that's social engineering, excuse me, right? That whole idea that there are white hats and black hats, sure, there might be two different factions, but they still might be sitting at the same table. Now, when we talk about two different factions, some of my chat I've already mentioned the Boule. Now, as we get to this next video, I got to pull it in now. So I want to let you know the Boule is essentially the other side of the coin. In race relations, people think that this whole organization could be white, and I've always said that these groups don't lack diversity. It's from all walks of the earth because these people have been operating on a different game plan than us. So when we talk about how is it that these groups can be created and disguised, it would start with money and wealth and power somewhere, and it would go into making alliances and making deals with families and taking on bloodlines, and it goes from there. Now I'm gonna play the Boule sound clip for you. You guys enjoy. Here you
Who we
go.
know as the Boule, which was the black, light-skinned professional elite, doctors and lawyers out of Philadelphia, who felt that they had no class association for themselves, because they weren't allowed to mix with the white elite. And they felt they were above the rest of the black community, so they created the first Greek-led black organization in America, what we know as the Boule, so that they could have their own debutante, cotillions, and their own elite thing. And so there was a fight at that time about what we would be called Negroes. This fight called Vietnam, but they're going to be called Negroes, colored, Afro-Americans, Sudanese, Ethiopians. All of these were discussed at that time.
Hold on, I do want to say something. This is where your Pan-Africanism is coming from. This is where all this stemming from. It comes from the Boule.
So the Niagara movement was the militant aspect of the black movement. But then that's when something happened in the South. A Jew named Frank was lynched. He was a Jewish travel salesman, a police, or what do you call it, the insurance salesman, traveling salesman, one of those, who was lynched in Georgia for the raping of a young white girl in a warehouse. There was a black man also arrested who was a janitor in one of these warehouses. But they let the black man go, and they captured the Jewish guy, took him to jail, and the mob came and lynched him. His name was Brown, I think. But at any rate, that's when the Jews formed the Anti-Defamation League. And they came to the black folks and formed a partner organization called the NAACP.
I want you to understand what you just heard. All right? We're going to talk.
I mean, at ACP, the only black person in the leadership was W.B. Du Bois, who was the, I think, the secretary. All the rest of the officers of that organization were white folks. So they were using black folks, and they would use black folks for the next coming decades as cannon fodder to change laws in America that would favor Jewish immigration into the South and development in the South. And once those laws and stuff was passed, the same Jewish population who profited so much from integration and desegregation would turn against the African American population in their partnership with the white Southern business and cultural community.
All right. Now, I know that just covered a lot in 3 minutes and some change, 2 minutes and some change, excuse me. Now, understand how this transpired, right? So everything, now, before I go into this, let me say something open and honest. In no form or fashion am I preaching anything, in no form or fashion am I saying anything. I have no quarrels with anybody, but what I'm saying is the things that Americans are holding near and dear to their heart aren't really what you think they are. The race relations in America are not what you think they are. They are fabricated. This is not to say that racism does not exist. I'm just saying that it is a construct given to us for control. And this goes back to the diagrams. This goes back to the secret societies. This is how they instituted their control. They basically gave us the problem and then gave us the solution, but the solution had a hidden meaning behind it. Everything that we may have thought was for American rights and civil rights was really just some backdoor information or backdoor bills and legislation for Zionists. Okay, so you have to understand that when people get so upset that they're willing to fight over, white and black, Pan-Africanism, and anything going into the black movement. This is why Black Lives Matter was a huge letdown, because it started off as grassroots. It started off as a good thing until the original 6 were all mysteriously wiped out. Now, what you see now is a co-opted infiltration hack job, and a lot of those people are going to prison right now for embezzlement of money, taking campaign donations, It is what it is, man. This is the game. George Soros, the Clinton Foundation, they're all involved. Don't think the Republicans ain't involved either, guys. These little proxy political groups are everywhere. I think you guys call them like rhinos sometimes. Like these people, you may think they're fighting for you, and they're doing the exact opposite because their allegiance is tied to these certain groups, and there's nothing the little person can do by himself. Okay? There are things that we have to understand in this game. Now, for the audio bites, we're going to hold off on those for right now. I got some literature, right, that discusses different ways and instances in history that this all happened, right? It explains all the world wars. It can explain, the depopulation idea. It explains a lot. Okay. Explains a whole lot. Give me a second. Hold on. All right. There we go. Before we get into this, feel free to hit up all my social media platforms. Feel free to send stars. Feel free to donate to my Rumble. Everything goes to the Daily Rabbit Hole. It's much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, that's some literature for you. It is called, here we go. One of my favorite books is The New World Order, The Ancient Plans, Secret Societies. Really, really old book, right? Book was written around actually not that old, 1990. Looking at the wrong one, by William T. Steele. All right, The New World Order, The Ancient Plan, The Secret Societies. All right, so I'm gonna screen share. Give me a second. Give me a second. All right, here you go. Now, so just to give you a brief synopsis of the contents, we got October 1973, the Nixon coup. Chapter 2, Ancient Secret Societies. 3, The Great Atlantean Plan. 4, the Early America and the Revolution. 5, Weishaupt's Illuminati. 6, the French Revolution. 7, American Jacobins. 8, American Masonry. 9, Pike and Mazzini. 10, Karl Marx. 11, Soviet Revolution, which the Bolshevik conflict. 2, central banking. Franklin D. Roosevelt. World War II and the communist aftermath. 14, the present. And 15, the constitutional assault. All right. Now, this gentleman broke a lot of this down. Some of it I got highlighted because, I've been reading through it for some time. But really good read. Really good read. All right. Now, so I think I passed chapter 1. Let me go back. Nope, that's not where I wanted to start. Sorry. I had it highlighted. All right, Ancient Secret Societies, right here, guys. Hear me out, right? It says Masonry or Freemasonry is the largest and oldest of the secret societies, and still today is one of the most powerful groups on earth. This is 1990. All right. Certainly in the past, it was difficult to hold a position of power in most nations without having undergone the initiatory rites of Masonry or one of the related secret societies. One modern source lists 17 American presidents as having been Masons: Washington, Madison, Monroe, Jackson, Polk, Buchanan, Andrew Johnson, Garfield, McKinley, Teddy Roosevelt, Taft, Harding, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Truman, Lyndon Johnson, Ford, and Reagan, right? According to the 1951 edition of the Holy Bible, Masonic edition, there's an abundance of evidence that Thomas Jefferson was a Mason, and Pierce and Taylor were also strongly suspected of having been members, all right? Although Masonry claims members in every corner of the globe, the vast majority of the 6 million members worldwide reside in the United States and Great Britain. All right, let me say that one more time. They reside in the United States and Great Britain, 2 of the main powers of district control of the world. All right, DC is the war capital. Britain or London is the financial district of the world. All right, you got the war district and you got the financial district. All right. Outside of the fact that it originated in that general area of Great Britain also, sure. But always remember, you have those two districts. So always remember that. Masons themselves are proud of their influence. One high-ranking Mason, Manly Hall, wrote, "It is beyond question that the secret societies of all ages have exercised a considerable degree of political influence." Hall then urges his readers to join those who are really living the powers behind the thrones of modern national and international affairs. The same implications comes from Masonic sources. The Masonic Bible states, "For well over 150 years, the destiny of this country has been determined largely by men who were members of Masonic fraternities." This is 1990, okay? By this point, there's enough research and understanding to go around on this, okay? So let's say people back then had already kind of formulated this idea that secret societies are clearly in control. And this whole time you've been hearing conspiracy, 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 right? People who publish stuff like this, you know, their stuff doesn't go too far besides like, you know, hardcore readers or fans. You know, there's always a way to, you know, cross-reference and look through different information. Always remember this stuff is just cross-reference. You can look through it yourself. You can always find the information. We're just pointing out the obvious right now, okay? Now, as you see this, black and white, this is President Harry S. Truman in a Masonic apron. All right, now, Masonry still goes back, right? It's really old. Like KJ said, somewhere around 6,000 years. Ancient Egyptian Masonry can be tracked back more than 5,000 years to the secret societies of the ancient Egyptian priest. Masons who visit the tombs of ancient Egypt are astounded by the religious symbols painted upon the walls. There displayed before them are the same grips, signs, postures, symbols, and even the apron used for their own initiation. So even then, 5,000 years ago, the same habits or the same patterns are showing themselves. All right? Same patterns. Nothing has changed. It's just one group doing something different that they knew that was around thousands of years ago, right? This is where we get the occult information from. Occult information is just hidden knowledge. Occult sounds like a deadly word or a scary word. When you hear cult, that's just open knowledge, where you do it out in the open. Hidden is just occult, hidden knowledge, hidden groups, secret societies, right? All right. Where was I? All right, it says, but some Masonic authors claim even greater antiquity. One Masonic writer claims it is older than any religion today. It states that it originated in remote antiquity. The order existed as a compact, well-organized body long before the building of the oldest pyramid. According to General Albert Pike, head of American Masonry in the late 1800s, is still today regarded as the guiding light of modern Masonry. With her traditions reaching back to the earliest times and her symbols dating further back than even the monumental history of Egypt extends, it is still the same as it was in the cradle of the human race, when no human foot had trodden the soil of Assyria and Egypt. So we're talking the first ever religion, first ever source of control or source of information is derived in Freemasonry. Now, when we fast forward everything we know about our existence and our control and our government, we understand that they're literally practicing the same exact things. You get a lot of your politicians and leaders and agency leaders are Masons or some type of fraternal order. Even in the Boule and the Divine Nine, the Greek Nine are still prominent in big business and big pharma and mainstream media. Nothing has actually changed. It's just that for us, it's hard to see these groups for what they are, because in our own world, we don't even believe that this is that. People really just assume that they're doing a little initiations and they're basically just getting networking ability for the rest of their life. And to some extent, they are getting that. To some extent, they are getting the right to, you know, grow within their industry, but at what cost and how far are they willing to go? All right. Politics of TV and the entertainment division of the military industrial banking complex. Yep. So a lot of times these little proxy groups are adolescents are drawing, even at the young level, they're grooming early. You can look at your high schools and see the service clubs. You go to college, you see all the little groups on both sides of the spectrum: fraternities, sororities, service clubs, lifelong partnerships, networking, frats. Well, I think I already said frats, but just the idea that there's all these little proxy groups in college that are centrally geared to usher in the next generation of control and influence. Okay. These secret societies play the long game, guys. They don't really play a short, quick game. That's minute to them. They play more of the long game, right? So I got a little bit more audio bites for you. I'm gonna play something else.
And I want to say something else. One of the things that I learned from whistleblowers from the cabal itself is that they have to work within something they call the rules. And this is very, very important. So I really want to make sure that this gets into the film. The rules are a body of spiritual principles that they must follow in order to be allowed to exist. Now, what do I mean by allowed to exist? I mean that they are aware that there are benevolent forces that will prevent them from achieving their goals unless we give them permission to enslave us. Now, think about that. Well, I didn't give them permission. So why did they put this plan for 3 world wars on display in a book that's hanging there open behind glass in the British Museum Library of London? And those 3 world wars that they're outlining are exactly World War I, World War II, and the war on terrorism. Because the rules state that they have to tell us what they're doing. Therefore, if we allow it to happen, we have consented to tyranny, we have consented to enslavement. Now, if you get into the secret history of the cabal, this was rediscovered by Queen Elizabeth, the original Elizabeth that we've heard about from the 1500s. Queen Elizabeth's royal astrologer, a man named John Dee, who is the prototype of the wizard with the long beard, the hat, and what he did was to rediscover, through these ancient documents that were in the Vatican, the technology of how to access what they considered to be spiritual beings that were useful to them, but what we would consider to be demonic or evil beings. These beings need to be accessed through a very complex set of rituals and ceremonies. You cannot just ask for them to show up. You have to follow very elaborate and specific protocols. If you follow those protocols, it's like having an IP address, which is what we use to go online in order to notate a website. Every website has its own IP address. These spiritual beings, such as Baal and Moloch, which they still do ceremonies for today, such as in Bohemian Grove, there is a giant effigy, stone effigy of an owl. That's the god Moloch. The god Moloch goes all the way back to Rome and Carthage, in which they were offering child sacrifices to this god in exchange for power. So John Dee rediscovered the technology of how to draw the magic circles, how to say the right incantations, how to actually do black magic on a governmental level. This is what people are going to have so much trouble with once disclosure happens, is that these people actually practice black magic, and they are very, very good at it.
All right. So I'm just getting back. Here we go. Right on time. So as you're hearing what the guy was saying, right, there's a system of rules that this secret society has to go by. They have to explain to us what they're doing. They have to tell us in so many ways, or there's some type of spiritual force within the universe that will strike them down. But we, as the people watching them, keep accepting it because we don't know no better. Like, you ever try to tell someone, like, yo, those are chemtrails, and they're like, no, those are contrails. Yeah, those people are the ones making it hard. When you tell them something and they still don't believe it, that's them. When you watch it and you see it and you're like, and you don't say nothing, like the term is, you have to say is, I do not consent. You have to say, I don't consent. Anywho, the plan for the 3 world wars is the big conversation that he was talking about. That's why I brought it up, right? There's rules. They have to do it a certain way. They have to follow certain guidelines. They can't get too weird. They can't get too crazy. But they can do it in their own personal way. But when it involves us and we don't know anything about it, they have to tell us in certain ways so that their karmic debt doesn't come back on them or it doesn't stack up on them. Because apparently in this universe, the frequencies that you give off can bring back some pretty nasty stuff. And if you're basically pillaging the whole entire world the way they're doing, you can see the world becoming meaner and meaner and meaner, right? This is where we're at now. Like their debt, it's up there. It's up there right now. And what you're watching is them trying to get ahead of it, but it's not working. Now, their plan for the 3 world wars, where Albert Pike was stating that it's already in stone. We're going to go through it, you know what I'm saying? Because it's very, very relevant to what's going on right now, all right? So, it says, plan for the 3 world wars. Although they had finally united Italy, Mazzini and Pike realized that the unification of all Europe under the banner of Illuminism would be extremely difficult, if not impossible. Nationalism runs strongly in the human spirit and is very difficult to erase, especially on a continent divided by warfare for many centuries. Therefore, they set to work on their greatest plan, a plan so vast in scope that only a reader familiar with the great power wielded by the secret societies could begin to believe it. Nationalism runs strong in the human spirit, so the will to fight, whatever is inside of us, it's there. This is why you're getting the people who are talking about we're waking up, we're doing this, the white hats, even though that's piggybacking on your emotions right now, they understand the will to fight is real. So if you can get the ones who are ready to go do it, you can tag and track them and get them out the way. Okay? I've always mentioned that. Mazzini proposed a series of world wars. These wars were to embroil every nation in a conflict so bloody and chaotic that eventually every nation would surrender its national sovereignty to an international government, like the League of Nations or the second attempt, the current United Nations, in order to prevent subsequent global bloodletting. I don't know why I couldn't get that E out. One Masonic scholar wrote in 1987, the true birth of world democracy from its prenatal national confinement is now in progress. A war-torn, bleeding world in the midst of labor pains preceding the ordeal of birth. Labor pains in the birth of a new age. War, famine, and all this stuff that we got going on that we think is just luck of the draw, I suppose. It goes on to say, however, knowing the national sovereignty would certainly die hard, three of these world wars were proposed by Mazzini and Pike in their original plan. The first of these world wars, they hoped, would topple the Tsarist government of Russia and establish an Illuminized dictatorship. Soviet Union, Bolshevik conflict, we've talked about that. A new level in the game of control of populations. This would give the Illuminists a secure base from which to operate with a large population and vast natural resources to fuel the new engine of Illuminism, aka the Illuminati. There's Adam Weishaupt, 1776. He creates the Illuminati, kind of goes on from there. 1776, and same year that we got our, if I'm not mistaken, Declaration of Independence. Think about that. 1776, we didn't get our first president until 1789, I believe. George Washington, if you believe he's the first president, to say he's not. Can't say it's true, can't say it's a lie, just said I read it. So, Second World War would allow the new Soviet Union to capture Europe, or as it turned out, half of it. The Third World War would be in the Middle East between the Muslims and the Jews, and the world would bring about the biblical Armageddon. Certainly by the end of the Third World War, the battle-weary nations would be ready to accept any proposal as long as it's promised peace, uniting the entire world under the fatal banner of the Luciferian New World Order. Pike wrote to Mazzini about consequences of the Third World War in 1871. Listen to this, guys. Listen to this. It will provoke a formidable social cataclysm and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, will be without a compass, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally into public view, a manifestation which will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same exact time. Let me make my face big right now. That's not what I want to do. Listen. This idea is playing out right now, officially. If you think what's going on in the Middle East is by accident, it's right on time. It may be a couple years early, but it's right on time. Because how we're playing this out form, listen to the word I said, reactionary. Okay? Reactionary. Meaning when something goes wrong, they're gonna rely on us to lose our shit. They're gonna rely on us. They have to, because if they did it themselves, like the audio bite said, there's rules in play with these secret societies. They are going by rules that we know nothing about. We're going by the Constitution. We're believing the 10 Commandments. We're over here using morality and ethics sometimes. And these people are complete warmongering death cult. Like, they have no boundaries. They have no limits. They have no means in which they will stop or which they won't go any further. They will do it if it pushes whatever they want. Excuse me. Okay? So this whole secret society setup is created to push agendas and narratives into the Luciferian thought process. Okay? This is why you can see the attacks on Christianity right now. This is why Christianity has been listed as an extremist idea by DHS. That is official. They've made reports on it. This is why the tag, track, and ID of Pogo and Zypher is so relevant, because the Order of Malta, the Chaos Agents, or the last President Trump, whatever you want to call them, got everyone riled up, brought that nationalism out, the human spirit to fight, right? That's what it's all about, fighting the deep state. Guess what? They tagged y'all. They didn't tag me too, because I'm sitting here talking to y'all right now about this stuff. Everyone's tagged and tracked. I've shown that diagram. I did a video on it where I explained everything that you're watching or you're looking at on that report from 2009, where it had veterans, solo activists. Hell, they even had people like Greenpeace on the list. Everybody is on the list of being a domestic threat. Most of us. Whether you're Southern Baptist, Irish, Catholic, Roman, whatever you are on a list. If you believe Jesus Christ is your savior, if you believe in Allah, if whatever you believe in, they're coming for all of them, because they want the Luciferian idea. They want the Luciferian light. This is what they are. They are that kind of group of people. These secret societies have been here ushering it in, and they have failed a few times. Sometimes they had to stop, slow down, and play the long game. This is what the UN is. This is why all of our stuff is centered there. That's why there's 33 headquarters there in Geneva, Switzerland. It took them a long time to get control back and still understand that they still got to find some way to get Americans to flip that switch and become reactionary agents. And they're trying real hard. This is why we were talking about Monday, the PSYOPs and the social engineering and the programming. We talked about that. That's the reactionary item they're looking for. They want that. I don't know any other way to tell you this, but that's exactly what they're asking for, is for us to get out of pocket so badly that the executive orders have to be used and then they can implement martial law. I know we've heard this conversation numerous times, but I tell you now, the FEMA camps are real. FEMA is headquartered in Geneva. The FEMA camps have been around for some time. This is a known theory. It is damn near proven. The whole body bag thing, all that stuff. Jesse Ventura, you remember back in the day on True TV, and Jesse Ventura will go to these places and show you this stuff. That shit's been there a long time. They've been talking about this since the 90s. Now, I'm gonna speed up in this context because they go into like the current events, like what we got now. Give me a second. Soviet Revolution. I'm getting to it. Central banking, the Council of Foreign Relations. Someone mentioned that early, the Council of Foreign Relations. We were getting to them too. But since we're right here at modern times, I think it's best to go ahead and kind of explain how the modern times are going to play into this. Give me a second. I don't have much highlighted on this side. I bounce around a lot. All right, the present, chapter 14. All right. Now listen to this, all right? Make it quick. Try to get through it. Hear me out, right? I'm gonna pull it up. For you. There you go. Although World War II ended in 1945 with the American public thoroughly tired of hostilities, conquest by force of arms did not. The Soviet communists not only swept up half of Europe, but went after a substantial part of the rest of the world as well, many times under the banner of newly created United Nations. With Roosevelt's stamp of approval and Truman's tacit approval, communism made great strides on many fronts. Obviously, communists through their New World Order was within relatively easy grasp, if only they could move quickly enough before America woke up to the deception. So they're playing a game right now. Playing the game. They're trying to hurry up and get through this so that they can usher it in. Even back then, they knew they had to play the slow game. They knew they couldn't just jump up on us, because if they did, what would we do? We would get upset, we would revolt, and it would go the wrong way. It's not the way they wanted to go, because now our focus is on them. So with whole secret societies out here playing the long game on us, we can see why it took them so long with Project Mockingbird, Northwoods, MK Ultra, Pogo, Zephyr. Man, there were so many operations and movements and small pieces to the machine that we never saw any of this coming. And after the civil rights era, where most of the leaders were taken out, you could see the discourse amongst the American people that they didn't want to get in that fight anymore, because everyone had basically been made an example of. And that example was not pleasant. All right. You guys know about the grassy knoll with Kennedy. It wasn't pretty. MLK, Malcolm X, Huey P. Newton, Fred Hampton. The list goes on and on and on. Hell, even Tesla's in this conversation that before all of this. Everyone who's ever been involved with this group of people, if you did not play ball with them, you were pretty much pushed to the side and wiped out or put into a mental hospital. And I haven't even really got onto the main point that in a lot of these stories and issues, you hear a lot about Zionist in here, or Zionism, which is another form of communism or socialism. It's really all the same thing. It's just off brands of each other. It's kind of like Walmart and Great Value, to be honest. Target and Kmart. Same kind of store, but different name. This thing is full surface right now. And if we even pull up current events, you can see that right now it's mirroring Vietnam. And Vietnam was the push for a possible another war, but we kind of got out of that one. Like, we kind of did the same exit we did in Afghanistan, and it was really ugly then too. So the push for these wars have been a thing. In the last 20 years, we've been in the Middle East fighting and blowing up everything that was moving. We've been quietly pushing this agenda. Now, in 2024, if you want to believe that we're in the age of enlightenment and this is the awakening and that the secret societies have reached their end, then you can see why we're having this conversation. Because if everyone's truly waking up and that third eye in the middle right here is coming out, then maybe we have a fighting chance to get through this. But that's only going to be based on how we react to this situation. Because we know the secret societies exist, because if they didn't, Epstein wouldn't have been found. Whoever put him out in the open clearly didn't want to be the one to go out in the open first. They put him out. Even if you think he's gone, I don't think he is. I think he's still up and moving around. But he's not the only one. You got your Diddy's now. You got the rap game falling apart right now. You got politicians taking sides, which they've always done that. They're on the side who greases their pockets the best. And I hope that there's someone in there. But the secret societies are littered everywhere. The Zionists, the Order of Malta, the crisis actors, all these people are implants, industry plants, political plants, all by secret societies. And there might be a few people who said, what's that, brother? I don't want to do that. I'm not into that, right? There's people who saying they don't want to do that, but guess what? You don't get the same juice and the same love as everyone else that's in the game. So I'm sure there are little people out here fighting the great fight as far as against the quote unquote black hats, if you want to believe that. Because if there's good, there's evil, right, in this world, and this is how it's set up. And if we know that this satanic death cult that's been marching the world for 6,000 years, pillaging everything, then with the information that we got right now, like, you should be able to see and understand how this is playing out. Always know that your biggest psyops are coming out of the universities. Your biggest actors or implants or whatever are coming out of the universities. And if you're an industry plant in the music game, you're more or less someone who was easily swayed by money and influence and drugs and gold. Because if you stand for anything, they're not going to do anything with you. That run will only work for so long, right? So even if we were to take the stance, the problem is once we win, we would have to make sure that this never happens again, which clearly 6,000 years will tell you that this keeps happening again and again and again. They just keep losing and trying to come back every so 250 to 500 years. 1992, here we are, 500 years, but 248 years of American history. And if the saying is true about most have collapsed in 250 years, sure. So my outlook on this is right now is that whatever's happening, they're pushing the button, they're making it go quicker, because the age of enlightenment, the numbers, the signs, whatever you guys believe, I know that the numerology and the geometry of it, and the eclipse, it's too much to cover sometimes for me, like trying to line all that up. Some of y'all do that work too. Everybody got to do it. So what I'm saying is that they're playing on a worldly or universal system against us, and we kind of have to do that, but we have to do it as a unison. And we don't even have to play the system. We just have to actually say enough is enough. Enough of the secret societies, enough of the pillaging, enough of the subversion, enough of the psyops, and sit down and hit them where it hurts. The money, we hit the pockets. Go after the money, people. Pull out. Do what you did with what was that, AMC. God, I hope that wasn't a psyop. do what you did with GameStop, guys. Right? Hit them in their pockets. If you want real change, you have got to hit The pockets, because the pockets is where their power and their control comes from. In God we trust is written on the money. Their symbolism is all over the money. Their power is derived from money. When we touch the money and it transfers, because currency is a means of exchange. Money is just a currency to exchange. Energy is exchanging, right? We have to hit them where it hurts. I understand some of y'all think you guys want to get out here and get the fighting. Don't nobody want to do that. Shit is horrible. You've been to war? Real veterans know. I'm Air Force. I'll tell you what, I didn't do all that. It's a reason, because I went to the Air Force. Tell you now though, it's ugly. Conflict is ugly. It does not go well. It does not look good. It is not sexy. It is not what you think it is. It is not Call of Duty. It is absolutely horrible. It stinks, and it's nightmare fuel. We need to hit them in the right place. Their pockets, their institutes, their businesses, because these secret societies are holding themselves together through us. We are the ones enlisting ourselves into them for a greater good of networking and an opportunity to survive. You should not be doing strange things for a piece of change. You just shouldn't. It's not funny, but you guys, the idea of like joining a fraternity or sorority, you go through all these humiliation rituals, you go on the burning sand and you ride the goat and you do all this weird stuff, and you essentially pledge allegiance to stuff that you don't even really fully understand. For my people of color, understand, man, that Greek stuff that you're pledging, I understand that you wanted a opportunity to grow and excel. And I'm happy that some of you have got that, but I'm telling you now, that is not what you think it is. The further you go, I'm going to tell you now, it's going to get a lot weirder. And if you know, you know. Like, my aunt was an Eastern Star. Like, I went to those little meetings that she would have like every other quarter. Like, and they were all dressed in white, and the Shriners would sit on one side and the Eastern Stars would sit on the other side. And they would have like their little sessions and stuff. I would have to have a babysitter for certain sessions. Like, people brought their daughters, they would watch me in the hotel while they were doing their nightly thing, whatever they were doing. I couldn't go to that stuff, but I could go like to the daytime stuff. But they would do like, they would have nightly meetings or nightly balls or whatever. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying anything weird's going on. I'm just saying they like rituals. And if you, the further you go, the weirder it gets, right? So when we talk about secret societies, there's no limit to their reach and how they do this. I'm still live somewhere. I've been removed on a platform. I don't know which one, but I've been removed.